Welcome to the Swing Society podcast. Today we're talking with Jack Hughes about music. Jack, when did you and how did you start playing jazz?
I started playing jazz maybe after I finished university, and I studied classical music, and then I ended up listening more to older jazz albums, and I suppose out of curiosity and just wanting to be able to make that sound myself, so I started trying to play it, but it's difficult. There weren't many people to tell you how to do it where I was.
Yeah, and I can imagine there is not a universal way to do it when it comes to jazz.
Yeah, and it's still a big mystery to me. I mean, I don't know how. I still consider myself a beginner, and I don't know how people get so good at improvisation, how they feel confident improvising, and all these risks they have when they go on stage. So I'm still learning, definitely.
Yeah, how's jazz different from classical music?
Well, of course, the harmony is completely different, and but in terms of swing dancing and the reason that we're here, I guess the most important thing is the rhythm, and that word swing or swung.
Yeah.
So the swing rhythms is not something that comes naturally to someone that's only learnt classical music, and when I think just as when we start dancing and trying to dance to this music, when I started playing it, the kind of the swing rhythm part of it sounded quite it didn't feel relaxed. It sounded quite jerky, and I think that was a big problem at the beginning, and that was something I really had to practice and listen out for.
Did you experience something similar when you first started swing dancing?
No, I didn't, because I'd already gotten over that rhythmic part. I had a bit of a head start, so I'd already been listening to a lot of jazz and playing jazz, at least on my own, for quite a few years. So that first hurdle in swing dancing of getting the feel was I already had that.
Yeah,
I
you
think.
already had it in you, and you didn't have to worry about the rhythm and the swinging part.
It was one less thing to think about. Yeah.
Too much. Yeah, because in the beginning, it's quite a challenge for everybody who, maybe not everybody, but for a lot of people who start swing dancing to have that swing. I don't know. In my head, I always imagine the swing feeling like a train,
Absolutely.
like a constantly moving train. When you have that and in the beginning it's always difficult to get into it, although I think it's quite natural. But then maybe because you're thinking about too many things, like the move, the figure, how to move your body, and you're dancing with someone else, you're leading, you're following, and it's too much. It's too much in the beginning.
It's a lot in the beginning. Yeah, it's definitely quite overwhelming, all the things you've got to think about, and it can be quite discouraging at first because it doesn't feel. I mean, I think I've done salsa as well, and then I did swing dancing after, and I'd say, the one thing you want to be able to do whenever you're dancing is to feel the beat. And I think that's what makes swing dancing pretty difficult at first. Is that is the most difficult bit, and I think it's the idea of the swung rhythm. And I think it's one of those things that people are always trying to get better at. It doesn't matter what level you're at. Your feeling of swing is always something that you can improve. They say about Oscar Peterson that like he could really swing, and so if he can swing, they say that about Oscar Peterson, but not about other jazz musicians, then it must be quite a complicated thing.
Yeah, and I guess when you look at all the old-timers, the dancers and the musicians, you can say that they're like the perfect example of somebody who has the beat and who has this swing feeling. And then But then the swing music was all around them back in the day, and they were so much more influenced by it. And nowadays, we don't have swing music all the time around us.
No, we don't. And it is interesting to think, is it just because of that? Is it just because they grew up with it, they were in that environment, it was in their blood, maybe? Or, I don't know, I'd love to go back in time and ask someone exactly, how did you practice? What exactly did you do? Don't just tell me you got to feel the music and
because it was all around you.
Yeah, not just because it was, your parents did it, but what specific exercises did you do? I'd love to ask that to some great musicians or dancers.
What exercises do you do to strengthen your swing feeling as a musician and as a dancer?
I think using a metronome. And
the good old metronome.
The good old metronome.
I used to have very conflicting feelings about the metronome.
Why? How come?
Well, because I think it's very important to, when you play or when you dance, to be in the most natural environment of doing that.
Yes.
And I used to think that the metronome is a very artificial thing to add. Now I don't think like that anymore. Especially we started using metronome while we practiced tap dancing with Danny, and it's very helpful because this is the natural way to be in time with the music. And but I used to think that it's just something artificial that is happening.
Yeah. I mean, you can definitely think about it that way. It is artificial, and I think as long as it's it's one tool in the box to use, rather than being the only thing that you use. Of course, you're going to be dancing to music as well, not just a metronome. But as a tool, I think it's a really effective one, and I think maybe we don't use it half as much as we should.
Probably. I guess the end goal is to have the metronome ticking in your head at one point.
Yes, exactly. And for me, when I'm playing the piano, and not just jazz but anything, it's the metronome that really kind of develops a sense of when you're speeding up and you're playing and when you're slowing down, or maybe you suddenly start using a metronome when you haven't used it before, and then you realise that, that section just seems really fast now. So obviously I was slowing down before without knowing it. So it's helpful for that. But going back to that idea of the swing feel, I think it is useful because if we break down what that swing feel is, which is one beat divided into three, then you can do that with a metronome, and you can use that metronome as a guide to help you feel the da 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 da, rather than just saying this is a feeling, because I think for a lot of people it can be quite overwhelming, and we like to have maybe a theory or just a way that we can do it that we know we're getting it right. And I think a metronome can help with that.
Yeah, it's a good reference to how the music go when we dance, or what's the timing when we play.
I think so.
I guess.
Definitely.
I'm going back to what we talked a few minutes ago about the old timers, the original swing dancers, and the jazz musicians from that period, and how they practiced and what they were doing. For sure, they were doing that a lot. I think that's also something very important. I listened to an interview with Norma Miller a couple of days ago, where she was asked, how do you grow as a dancer? And her answer was, you dance 24/7 for 20 years. So that's something we can take. I mean, I guess we cannot dance 24/7.
Yeah.
But
that's a tricky piece of advice to put into
it's
practice.
A tricky piece of advice, yeah.
I'll put that in my diary. Practice for 27 years. Or 20
but then it's important to do it a lot. And to use different ways. Metronome, songs, and scatting.
Yeah. definitely.
Who were some of the old-time musicians that you got inspired by and you keep being inspired by today?
I always like the pianists that use the piano in a solo way, and I'm interested in those techniques. And so a few years ago I started looking at stride pianists, and I find that really interesting, because stride piano is something that is using the whole piano as the whole band, or it can be used in a band as well. So that would be people like Willie the Linesmith or Fats Waller.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love Fats Waller.
Yeah, very popular for swing dancing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so many songs as well that he wrote that are standards. Fats Waller, Teddy Wilson as well. Yeah, so all these guys.
Yes, the great masters.
Mm-hmm.
How would the stride sound?
So the stride sounds. It will probably sound familiar to you, but maybe the reason it's called stride is because it's describing what the left hand is doing, and what the left hand is doing is being the rhythm section, being the bass, being the drums, being the guitar. So the left hand is on its own is playing something like this.
I could see you only did that with your left hand,
yeah.
which is usually playing the rhythm.
Exactly, yes, exactly. So in a band, maybe a pianist these days would do more kind of staying in the middle of the range of the piano to support everything, like... something like that, which is not stride. There's no bass in it. But Fats Waller would have used this jumping left hand, so it's moving very quickly. And that would have come from Scott Joplin, who, this is ragtime music, so the stride piano definitely has origins in ragtime music, so the left hand is doing a similar thing. There, but ragtime's not swung.
No.
Unless you swing it. Like that. And what you've got there is it's like a marching band in your left hand. You've got your tubas. And then maybe the saxophones are playing the chords.
Nice.
And then you put it together.
Nice.
And that's where the stride would have come from, and then Willie the Linesmith would have started using that. And the thing about the swing music is that with the beats in swing music, we're always told that 2 and 4 are the strongest beats, so they're the ones. The chords are playing in your left hand. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and that helps. The stride helps with that feeling, getting the push on the 2 and the 4. So yeah, all the musicians that were using that, I find that really interesting. That's the music that I most like listening to, definitely.
Great. Actually, it's very refreshing to have music while we are having this conversation.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because it's make it so much nicer and make it flow better.
I hope so.
While we have music,
Well,
maybe we should invite you to be in all our podcasts.
Yeah, just in the background somewhere.
You can be in the background, you can be in the foreground, as long as we have music. I'm curious to ask you, what is it to play in a band, in a swing band, and because you are in a swing band and you already have played, you have done a few gigs for swing dancers, and what is it to be in the band, and how are things happening? How do you guys work together to create something so complete?
Yeah, it was new for me, and it's been hugely enjoyable and rewarding, but also tough, because you haven't, when you're in a swing band, you're there for a reason, and you're there to support the dancers, not just being a band with an audience that claps. So we need to do that. We need to do the right thing, and the pressure's there, because if it swings, and if it doesn't swing,
it don't mean a thing.
Exactly. Going into band was tough, because I don't really have that much experience playing in a band, and you can't always be playing stride in a band, because you've got a bassist there doing that bit.
Yeah, maybe you can, but it's gonna be boring after.
Yeah, exactly.
Half a song.
Yeah, so you can't always rely on that. So there's a lot of new things for me. There's a lot of discipline. You've got to stick to the form. You've got to communicate well. You've got to know who's going to take a solo at a certain point. You've got to know what songs you're going to play and when.
Oh, that's important, yeah.
You've got to know how you're going to finish them, how you're going to start them. And also, for a swing dancing party, you need to know and think about the repertoire and the order of the repertoire, because dancers are going to get bored if they have a load of similar tempo songs one after the other.
Yeah, how do you guys decide when to play the fast songs, for instance, or how many fast songs to play? Because this has always been a topic, and it can become tricky if you play too many fast songs, for instance. I'm saying that from my experience as a swing DJ.
Yeah.
That, sometimes there is the energy of the party that people just don't stop dancing, and they want the fast music. But most of the time, I think it's tricky with the faster songs.
Yeah, it's a good question, and I don't know. I mean, we've always had a set list of songs, and I think I've decided beforehand the order, and it's something like fast, a bit faster, very fast, then slow, and then a bit faster, then a bit faster. So it's like going over little mountains so each time. But I wonder if when you're really a kind of a seasoned musician or a seasoned band, you'll have that ability to say, we can see on the dance floor, we can feel this energy is going in this way, so let's do this song next. I think that would be the best thing, just like you could do on Spotify.
Yeah.
Or any other music service. So I think we do it. We try to think about it beforehand. But I think the best thing would be great if you could go with the energy of the dance floor, and that applies to the length of songs as well. Because of course in jazz you can make the song longer. You can keep going round and round and round the song. As many times as you need to, or as you want to. So again, that's reading the energy and reading the dance floor. Something which is new to me. Definitely.
Yeah, and I guess it also takes some time for you guys as a band to get to work together, so that you can communicate. Are we going to end the song now, or are we going to play one more chorus? I guess we as dancers are very familiar with the form of the songs.
Yeah.
For instance, we have the AABA forms or the blues forms, and we rely a lot on that. But maybe we're not so familiar with how musicians improvise, and more specifically how musicians communicate this improvisation so that they can sound together. How do you do that? What is your experience with that regard?
Well, I suppose communication during the performance is a very important thing, but the only thing that needs to be communicated really in a way which isn't listening is maybe who's going to take the next solo, or maybe if there's a small change to what was already talked about. But yeah, in terms of how do the band sound good together all the time when people are improvising, well, everyone's should be following the structure of the song, and that means they should be following the changes, which is the sequence of chords. So when I'm playing an F7 chord or something on F7, I know that the bassist is also playing the same thing. And that way that we should be together, or we definitely will be together, because essentially what the song is a theme and then variations really. So you have your classic song, for example, All of Me. So the theme would be. That's played the whole way through, and then the chords were C, and then it goes to E7, and then to A7, and to D minor. And that's always the same. That's always bars 1 to 4, those chords. So C, E7, A7, and then to D minor. So every time that we play the form, bars 1 to 4 are going to be those chords. And then when the song has been played through, someone will take a solo, but they're always taking a solo over those chords. So it's the same chords, but it's playing around with the melody, using the harmony, using the arpeggios, and playing on top of those. And whether that's making the melody more complicated, like I suppose I was there, or making it simpler. You can always simplify the melody. Improvisation isn't just about making something more complicated, so you could simplify
remove things from there.
Exactly, yeah.
And many times it actually it's more unexpected to remove things, and it actually sounds even better.
It does, yeah, to have that space suddenly. So yeah, I mean, I'll try it with those chords. So that's maybe a stripped down version, but it sounds all right.
Yeah.
But it's definitely less complex than the melody. So everyone's always on the same page. Well, at least they should be on the same page because that's where the song is.
Yeah.
And they should also be on the same bar where the chord is.
Yeah.
So that's how it should all fit together. And then the rest of it, I suppose, is listening and staying in time. And the rhythm section being a rhythm section, working together, locking in with each other. And maybe playing off each other's energy, like you would as a dancer with your partner. But it's tough. It's tough providing that the differences and contrasts when you're playing the same style of music. And not only that, but all these dancers are used to playing with people like Louis Armstrong or Duke Ellington, and then suddenly they've got me from up the road. So they're used to the world's best musicians, because that's what we practice to. So it's a tough call, but it's fun, and hopefully the fact that there's a live band there adds something.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty big thing that the music is played live. Of course, we have our greatest artists, the musicians, the dancers that we are inspired by, and I guess we can never compare to what they have done. But then that's what I love about jazz, is that you can always have your personal voice in what you're doing.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's tough as well, because it's difficult to develop that. And I think one of the things for me when I'm improvising is, and it's the same as when I'm if I can draw a parallel to dancing, when I first started dancing and I was dancing on the dance floor, like going to a party and dancing, my worry was, this song's 3 minutes and I've only got 2 moves.
What do you do with them?
What do you do? What's the combination? So it just, the worry was, I'm just going to be doing the same thing over and over again, and you know, what the person I'm dancing with, what are they going to think? This person's just doing the same thing. And it's also the same with playing music. I think I definitely worry about playing the same thing, and there's this pressure to do something different.
To tell you the truth, I have never thought you were playing the same thing while I was listening to you playing.
Okay. Maybe I got you. I'm sure.
I guess it's I'm pretty sure it's really in our minds, because I can say the same thing about dancing. Especially when you are when you're new, and you have in your head that what you said, you have only 2 moves. So what do I do with those 2 moves? And it feels like you are repeating over and over again. But I can tell you something else, because I dance both as a leader and as a follower. I have never thought, while dancing as a follower, about anyone, oh my God, they are doing the same thing over and over again. No, it just never happens. That's why I think it's just in our heads, because this music is so playful that even if you know 2 figures, you can improvise with them. You can put different rhythms in there, and that's actually the essence of that dance. And probably it's similar with playing, that very small changes actually can be your personal style. There. So yeah, that's very interesting.
Can you remember your kind of what's the word? Feeling kind of nervous about? Can you remember when you started dancing, feeling nervous about something like that?
Yeah.
Because it's the same as what the musician's doing. It's also improvising, isn't it?
Absolutely. I can remember that.
Insecurities. Sorry, that's the word.
Insecurities. Yes, I can remember. I was feeling like I didn't know what the next move should be. And that when I don't know, I'm constantly going into that move. I don't remember which one it was, but I had moments like that. Or I had the feeling, oh my God, every time I do a swing out, I do a circle after that. And I wanted to know more moves, and but at some point I realized it's not the most important thing, and actually knowing many moves or figures doesn't make you a good dancer. And actually the more time passed, the less moves I was using on the dance floor. And like I would say right now, maybe I have a few moves that I mostly dance with them, and what I variate is the rhythms, and you can make a move in open position or in closed position, but the figure itself, it's not that important. So but there is that time, especially maybe after a few months of dancing, where you're hungry to know more, and because moves is the easiest thing the easiest thing you can learning moves is the easiest way to add variety. But then I don't think we want this variety in jazz, because to be a good Lindy hopper, to be a good Lindy hop dancer, I believe you have to speak the language of jazz. And the language of jazz is not doesn't involve to know 1,000 moves. It's like the language we're speaking.
Yeah.
If I know all the words in English, but I don't know how to combine them and when to use which word, then my speech is not going to be impressive.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's an interesting word to use, the language of jazz, to say that. Yeah, it's interesting to think about what that means when you're dancing or when you're playing. But I absolutely agree with you. It's not about how many you know. But I think that's definitely what I thought it meant at the beginning.
We all did. We all did, I think. Because you see great dancers, how interesting their dances and how many variations they're doing. But at some point you realize that they're mostly playing with the rhythms. And I should say, I think, especially about dancing, we should make a distinction between social dancing and performing or competitions.
Yeah.
But then even in performing in competitions, the most beautiful performances, I think, are where you play with the rhythm, especially when the tempo is not that fast, because when the tempo is not that fast, you have far more possibilities to play with the rhythm.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think speaking the language of jazz is a big part of being good.
What does that mean?
Yeah, what does that mean? That's a good question, which we want to find the answer for. I don't know. For sure, I know there are certain things that contribute to speaking the language of jazz better.
Yeah. And what are those things?
Like, I think when you're dancing, for instance, there are certain rhythms that feel better to the jazz music, that make more sense. Certain combination of things. Or, for instance, a simple example is that in jazz, there is a lot of repetition. A lot of repetition of the melody, of smaller phrases. So in dancing, it makes sense to do 3 swing outs in a circle, to repeat things. I think it creates this constant train driving feeling. If you start to put too much, then it becomes too chaotic. Then I would say this is something that pulls you further away from jazz. But then it's not something defined. That's why I think you have to listen to a lot of music. You have to experience the form in every possible way.
Well, I completely agree with you. And one thing, although I said earlier that I don't know how jazz musicians practice, one thing I do know that is a huge part of what they do is transcription. So to learn the language of jazz as a musician, every good musician would tell you you need to transcribe. So you need to, that music that you're listening to, that fat swallow, if you wanna play like that, then you should listen to it, you should internalize it, sing it, and copy it at the piano, copy it at your instrument. And that's a huge part of learning jazz. And I wonder, do you think that idea of transcription is a useful tool, and is it a thing that's possible to do with dancing?
Yeah, definitely. I think an equivalent to that in dancing could be to watch the old clips of the original dancers and try to recreate the choreographies they have done. Or if you've seen a dancer social dancing, try to recreate the things that they have done.
Yeah.
And I should say the end goal is not to copy 100% what they're doing. The end goal should be to recreate the atmosphere.
Okay.
Two of my Lindy hop teachers, Åsa and Daniel Hedman from Sweden, often they say the most important thing when you watch yacht clips is to recreate the atmosphere that the dancers they had there. And a very good way to go to that place is to watch the clips and try to copy what they're doing. And that's how you put it in your body, that's why you put it in your brain, and that's how you get used to that feeling that they have created there. And once you get the atmosphere, then you can start to put your own voice.
Okay, yeah. I completely agree with that, and I'm thinking about it in terms of what I've read about, what I've been told about learning and practicing at the piano, and that completely makes sense. I think that's one way of doing it. You know, to as a musician, maybe you can listen and play along with these tracks. As you would a musician, as a dancer, to get into the mood of it. But I think there's other ways as well. Like,
absolutely, yeah. There are so many ways
to use maybe the videos, because you could go to huge lengths to copy exactly what they're doing in these videos. You can use that little function on YouTube to slow them down.
Yeah.
And you know, that's what musicians do. They slow down so they can hear every single note, in order to really learn the language.
Yeah, but you got to be careful with that too.
Why is that?
Because I think if you slow it down, then you lose the atmosphere. Then you lose the feeling that they're creating. You know, because then you are focusing on more on the technical part, which is important, but you have to be clear that you're only doing it to see and understand what they're doing, and then you have to go back to how they did it originally, to that tempo, in order to get the complete feeling. At least that's what I'm doing when I'm looking at the old clips, especially with rhythms. You know, sometimes I'm like, oh my God, what are they doing? And it feels like every time I watch the clip, it feels like the rhythm is different.
Right.
Because it's not, I think it's again about that swing feeling. It's not straight on the beat. Sometimes it goes a little before the beat or after the beat, and you cannot say it was on one. Maybe it was like 1 millisecond after one, and that's what makes it to feel swinging. And I think that's part of the feeling that you want to recreate when you are copying the creators of the dance or the music. So you got to be careful with the tools you're using. That's what I think.
Yeah, I think so. I agree.
Yeah, you should use every possible tool, but be clear and understand why you're using it and what's the effect. Because in the end, as we said, we want to have the feeling, we want to have the atmosphere to put our own voice.
Yes.
Yeah, we agree on that.
We do agree on that.
We don't disagree.
No, I do. I agree. I think we're talking about two different tools, and for me, I think that kind of strenuous work, or that very slow and technical work, which is working out exactly what they're doing, I think that's just as useful. And I've used that. The progress that I've made when transcribing solos, I've been playing the track at 20% of the original speed in order to know exactly what they're doing. It's needed. It's needed
because there are different characteristics of the song or the dance that you need to get into your body and brain in order to play it. So I absolutely agree that it's needed.
Yes, but at the same time, what you said about getting into the mood, playing along with tracks or dancing along, maybe but while watching another dancer, is also a great tool. Actually, I've never done that with dancing, but I can imagine it would be very useful.
It is, yeah. It is, because you get used to the feeling and what they're doing. But of course, use all the tools, dance 24/7, play 24/7.
For 20 years, wasn't it?
For 20 years, yes.
Yeah.
Normal set for 20 years.
20 years, and then you can relax.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. In order to be good, that's what you got to do.
Well, dedication, yeah, it's a big thing.
Yeah. What was the hardest thing for you when you started swing dancing, in terms of musicality? Or because I'm asking this question because you already said that you had the swing feeling, and that's a big thing. But what was the hardest thing for you?
The hardest thing in everything with swing dancing.
With swing dancing, yeah.
It wasn't a technical thing. I think it was the forcing myself to dance at social dances, and to not get trapped into this idea that one day I'll feel confident enough to go and ask someone to dance, and I'm just going to wait for that day. I'll just keep going to classes and I'll wait until I'm good enough. That was the most difficult
20
thing.
years, right? In 20 years. After you dance 24/7 for 20 years, you're going to be good enough and go on the dance floor.
I've got 2 down, I've got 18 to go.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was getting over that. And for me, because I'd done some salsa and it's the same problem, I kind of maybe knew that from the beginning, but it was still quite uncomfortable, again, because of the things that we've said, about thinking, I'm going to be doing the same move all the time, or maybe I won't be in time. That person's so much better than me, they don't want to dance with me. So it was kind of getting over myself and getting over that idea. That was the most difficult thing. And I think I did do it. I tried to dance as much as possible. You go to these social dances after your first classes, and desperate. You're going to this big room. You don't see anyone from your class, and as soon as you do, you're so happy to see them. And then I think that's what's nice about going to classes, is that when you go to the social dances, there'll be someone there who's in the same boat. You feel
safer. Yeah.
You feel safer with them. But that's not to say that you shouldn't ask people that are more advanced to dance, because I'm sure that you can learn a lot. I mean, I don't consider myself advanced at all, but I think dancing with people who are better than you is a great idea.
Yeah, of course. And I think you should dance with as many people as possible.
Good or bad, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
It doesn't matter, but yeah.
And the social part of dancing is a very important one, and it's good to go to the studio to have some classes, but then when you go to the party, it teaches you so many other things, and it can be stressful in the beginning.
Definitely.
Do you have favorite swing tunes?
My favorite swing tunes are... That's a good question I haven't thought about. I like Fats Waller's songs.
Honeysuckle Rose.
Honeysuckle Rose. Although my favorite song is I'm Going to Sit Right Down and Write Myself a Letter, because I think the tune's brilliant and the lyrics are brilliant as well. At the moment, my favorite song is a song called Back Home in Indiana, which I don't think is actually played that much. Do you recognise the name of that?
Yeah.
You know it?
I do.
Okay, I'm not sure I've heard it many times.
I think there is a famous Ella Fitzgerald version of that song.
Okay. I'm sure there's a famous Ella Fitzgerald version of every song.
Yeah. Ella or Louis or both of them singing together.
Yeah. some combination of those two. So I think that's my favourite song. I really love the chord changes in it and the harmony. So yeah, what's your favourite swing tune?
My favorite swing tune, I love On the Sunny Side of the Street.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. There are so many versions that sometimes I love a certain version. For instance, there is a very good Benny Goodman. They're all good. Like there is one Benny Goodman version. Then recently I've been liking the Louis Armstrong version a lot.
Okay.
But there is something so positive and at the same time something very melancholic in that song that really puts me into thinking, and it's a nice tune to dance to.
You think it's quite a medium, like quite an easy tempo to dance to, that song?
Yeah.
Do people, it's played a lot, isn't it? It's quite popular song. Do you think
it's very popular.
Is it often at the same tempo, or is it one of these songs that people do slow and fast?
I think usually it's not played too fast.
Yeah, I think it's quite medium.
I cannot think about the fast version. I think I've heard it very slow, more in the medium tempo, but not too fast.
Yeah, around the medium line. Yeah. Well, I hope one day soon we'll be able to play it at a party.
Let's see when that day comes.
Yes.
Until this day comes, what would be your advice for people to broaden their jazz vocabulary?
To broaden their jazz vocabulary.
Yes.
Listen to. I think Count Basie. Definitely. I love Teddy Wilson. So there's a lot of solo stuff that I love to listen to, but Teddy Wilson and Benny Goodman, they did a lot of albums together, and I think they're my two main guys, Teddy Wilson and Benny Goodman, and Fats Waller, of course. Fats
Waller is amazing. You can actually learn so much even from watching him, because he's so expressive with his face all the time while he's playing.
That's very true. Yeah, he has some very expressive eyebrows.
Yeah.
Clearly a lot of practice went into those.
Well, great, Jack. I think it's a nice wrap up and a good place to end this conversation. That we should listen to a lot of Jack. Thank you very much. We should listen to a lot of music and not a lot of Jack. But of course, if you play a lot, we will listen to you. So thank you very much for that wonderful conversation.
Thank you for having me on.
Thank you for listening. We are on Patreon. You can find us by Swing Society, where you can support us if you like the things we are doing.